Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast brought to you by our friends over at Brier Grieves Insurance. Make sure you give Brier Grieves Insurance a call, especially if you're looking for better car insurance. Let Brier Grieves Insurance do all the legwork for you. They will shop around and look for different insurance companies giving you the best price that they have to offer. So, Brier Grieves Insurance, super helpful with car insurance, but they also specialize in homeowners, flood, boaters, and business insurance as well. Find more information about Brier Grieves Insurance at briergrievesinsurance.com, or you can give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. And let Brier Grieves Insurance find the best deals for you. It is a Monday edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. We are back, ready to rock and roll on today's episode. We're going to talk a lot about Baker Mayfield, how he needs to be better Mayfield going into the 2026 season. There's also a little bit of breaking news, a new signing by Tampa Bay right before the show began. So we're going to talk about that as well. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com. SR, Scott Reynolds. Hello, Scott. Good to be on with you. How's it going? Think you're muted.
There we go. I'm muted. Now I'm not. Just want to congratulate you on the St. John's win over Kansas.
Yes, I thought of you. I was rooting hard.
I thought of you.
I was thinking of you when that Kansas lost. So
yes,
yeah, buzzer beater, fantastic moment.
Loved it.
And also the guy that scored, his dad played in the NFL for 10 years. So there is
okay.
Yeah, a football reference.
Nice.
Anyway.
Nice. Well, great minds think alike, and congrats on that. It's always a good day when the Jayhawks lose. So having said that, we're talking about Baker Mayfield today, Matt, but it's interesting because you mentioned that there was a signing that took place within the last hour. And that would be a familiar face to one Baker Mayfield. He's getting sacked by Christian Rozeboom, who is the newest Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Inside linebacker, played middle linebacker for the Panthers over the last couple of years, have been very productive in terms of his tackle totals, and 257 tackles over the last 2 years. And not only did he get a sack on Baker Mayfield, he also picked him off in Raymond James Stadium. So he's had a little bit of good mojo at Ray J. And so Baker Mayfield, one of the personal tormentors that he has in the league, is now a teammate. So he won't be doing any of that when it counts, maybe in practice. Obviously not sacking Baker Mayfield, but maybe picking him off, but no longer with the Panthers. So Tampa Bay gets another inside linebacker here, and this is probably more of a middle linebacker compared to Alex Anzalone, who we think will be playing the money backer spot, the money linebacker role, which is the Lavonte David spot, the weak side linebacker, right? When you think of last year, Servassier Dennis and Lavonte David, Alex Anzalone replacing Lavonte David, and then Christian Rozeboom. Pencil him in as a starter just due to his experience. Yeah, I was told he's probably a little bit better than Servassier Dennis, but he's not ideally maybe the guy you want to start. And he's not a Pro Bowl caliber guy. This is not going to preclude the team at all from drafting an inside linebacker early, maybe in the first round, maybe in the second round, maybe in the third round. But what this is you want to build your depth charts and your roster from the bottom up sometimes, right? And raise the floor. And I think he's better than Nick Jackson, right? And Jackson's a practice squad linebacker as of right now. We'll see how he develops and all this in time. But as of right now, he's better than Nick Jackson. And then probably on par with, maybe better due to his experience, than Servassier Dennis, right? And so you want to get those star headliners for sure. And we think that's going to come in the draft this year, and it probably won't preclude them from taking two inside linebackers again. If you end up pushing Servassier Dennis and Nick Jackson off the roster, so be it, right? Just like we talked about that with outside linebackers. You push Chris Braswell, off the roster, Anthony Nelson probably staying. He's a Todd Bowles favorite. But if Anthony Nelson, Matt, is outside linebacker 5 or 6, Like, that's okay. So I think this is a sneaky good addition by the Buccaneers. Also helps in special teams as well.
That's exactly why I like the move, is because it doesn't stop Tampa Bay from doing anything that they want to do in the draft. Jacob Rodriguez, come on down. CJ Allen, come on down. Like, that's totally fine as well. So right now, Roseboom is a placeholder starter because no games have been played yet. No practices have been done yet. He is a placeholder starter for now, but does bring some value in terms of, he's not the perfect player on the field by any means, but he won a Super Bowl with the LA Rams in the 2021 season. Also follows this team this offseason. I think some of it's just been a happy accident, but he was teammates with Ashawn Robinson with the Rams, and then obviously on Carolina last season. And we highlighted a lot how Alex Anzalone and Al-Qadim Muhammad were teammates now for the third time after being in New Orleans and then Detroit as well. So a lot of familiarity with these new signings. A guy that can play special teams and really worked his way up as well. He was an undrafted free agent, played at South Dakota State, so part of the Jackrabbits. You see some of those guys make it into the NFL, like Tucker Kraft, the Packers tight end. So a guy that's had to fight for everything in his career, which, we've seen a lot of diamonds in the rough here in Tampa Bay with guys that were either undrafted free agents and then, can kind of make an impact for the team. Obviously, Christian Izien is a guy that comes to mind, even though he left in the offseason this year. I think Sean Tucker is another really good example of that. So a guy that's just going to give it his all no matter what. And then while he is a little bit older in age and can still help out with the special teams, if he does need to start, he has a lot of starting experience over the last 2 seasons. 2024, played in 17 games, started in 11. And then last season, his 1 year with Carolina, played in 15 games, was out for 2, but started in all 15 of those games and had 135 tackles in 2024 and 122 tackles in 2025, again, with missing the other 2 regular season games. So this guy is not afraid to hit. He is a tackling machine. Ideally, probably not your day one starter, but a guy I think you feel okay about coming in if he has to start for a game or 2. And this does not, the only thing this is going to do is make us maybe a little bit confused. Hey, is that Alex Anzalone or is that Christian Rosenboom with the long hair? But that's why you got the last names and the numbers as well. But this isn't going to stop the Bucs from drafting an inside linebacker, improving their team in that department. And I think from a depth perspective, if you look at the linebackers that the Bucs had last season and what they have so far during this season, I already feel way better about the depth side of it. But if you don't find that next key starter next to Anzalone, I'm not going to say it was for nothing, but that's still the ideal goal at inside linebacker for this team.
Exactly. Your goal every offseason is to improve your roster. And I think we've seen these incremental improvements, right? There hasn't been that, they didn't trade for Max Crosby. It's not like this, massive mega leap from Hassan Reddick to Max Crosby, but I feel better about Al-Qadim Muhammad than I do about Hassan Reddick, right? At least right now, based upon what they did last year. So again, we're seeing these incremental improvements, and then they need to hit on this draft class. That there's no secret to that. They really have to find some starters, and some of these starters have got to become stars, right? That's kind of been what we have mandated for the Buccaneers. You mentioned the fact that they've drafted, that they've signed a couple of players now, right? So it's like you have Alex Anzalone with the hair, right?
Yes.
And then you've got Christian Roseboom, who also has the hair, and he's got a mustache. So this tells me that maybe the team is moving in the direction of getting, another guy with a mustache. Maybe not the hair, but I think maybe Roseboom is kind of like the bridge between Jacob Rodriguez and Alex Anzalone. He's got both, whereas J-Rod has got that sexy stash, and then you've got the long flowing Goldilocks of Alex Anzalone. So just from a facial hair and a hair, a follically aesthetic Buccaneer linebacker room, I like the way this is going so far. I approve of this.
Yeah,
heading in the right direction.
It's a heavy metal hairband, which is which is cool to see. Now, of course, the other side of this, and I saw some people in the comments mention, what does this mean for Lavonte David? I think that's fair to question. Obviously, Lavonte's one of the more beloved players in franchise history. And Jason Light said last week, the door is always open for Lavonte. He said it's open until like the preseason and all of training camp. So the thing is, with the Bucs can't just wait around and then wait for Lavonte to make a decision. Like they have to operate and move and make moves for this team. Because what if Lavante's like, hey, you know what? I am going to retire. Well, then damn, like you're kind of screwed because you missed out on this player and that player. I don't know. It's a little tough because if Lavonte comes back, that does push other guys out of the way because you're not signing Lavonte and not, using him in some form of capacity. But it very much, if you're kind of reading the room, it does very much feel like Lavonte is likely going to retire. And, this is the new staple of Bucs inside linebackers.
I think you're right. It seems to me that, and this is not inside information. This is just my opinion here based upon what I've kind of seen and what I feel like is happening. The Bucs have spent a lot of money in free agency, whether you want to believe it or not. I mean, $2 million here, $4 million here, $10 million here, like it all adds up, right? So they've spent some money. They brought in a lot of new players, external free agents, and the pie is getting smaller, right? And your Lavonte David, you made $9 million last year as on a 1-year deal. And I think that was up from like 7.5 a year prior, right? It might be a thing now where the Buccaneers have an offer on the table for Lavonte. And again, just my speculation guess at this, we'd love to have you back at like $4 million, and it's kind of what we can afford to pay you now. You're 36. You were injured last year. Is the knee totally fixed? Is it going to be a recurring problem? We don't know. It almost feels like they're kind of pricing Lavonte out. They're almost like kind of forcing him into retirement by saying, we have this much left for you, and let's see what we do in the draft first, and we'll kind of revisit this after the draft. I have no idea what type of conversations are going on here. His agent is kind of positioning it like this is Lavonte's choice. Lavonte might not have a choice, to be honest. This might be a thing where the Buccaneers are trying to hopefully encourage him to bow out gracefully rather than having to literally tell, a legend, no, we don't want you back, right? Because that can sting. That's what happened to Derek Brooks, right? They cut Derek Brooks during Mark Dominic and Raheem Morris's like their first move as new GM and new head coach was getting rid of him and Warwick Dunn and Ike Hilliard and Cato June. It was like a massacre, like a salary cap, massacre for the Buccaneers.
Right.
And Brooks got caught up in that, right? And he had an offer, I think, from the Saints, but it was like a low ball offer, didn't want to do it. So then he opted for retirement after he sat out a year. That might be where this is heading with Lavonte. It kind of feels like it's that, and like you said, man, is there room now on this roster for Lavonte David, right? Because you've signed Alex Anzalone to what did he get? $7.5 million.
Yeah. 2-year deal. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know where Lavonte David starts. Is he your Mike? He's not really a middle linebacker. He can do it. He can play that, but he's not the ideal Mike. And like you were saying, Christian Roseboom's kind of like a placeholder at Mike. You think of him and Servassier Dennis in that role. I don't know. This feels like it's the end for Lavonte David. I think he ends up
right. And the Bucs can position it again publicly because they've taken a lot of hits with Mike leaving, saying, "Hey, we want Lavonte back, but sorry, we just don't have any more money." And Lavonte's not going to play free. And meanwhile, on the back end, it's like, okay, well, they kind of purposely spent this money so they didn't have to pay Lavonte. But, it is what it is. Maybe Lavonte will say, hey, you know what? I'll take the veterans minimum. I don't care. I just want to keep playing. But, yeah, for sure. I mean, it does seem like it's going to be the end of Lavonte's tenure in Tampa Bay. And it's just tough coming off the heels of everything else that happened this offseason. Yeah. But it is what it is. The Bucs got to field the best team that they think is going to give them the best chance to win. And, that's why they're in the spot.
Agreed. Finest Pickle Dogs says, SR is going to be so giddy at the press conference if they draft Rodriguez. You have no idea. I'm follically challenged. I really can't grow a mustache. I will be praying to God for him to allow me to grow a mustache for that press conference. Or I might just show up with like one of those little, phony, like stick-on mustaches. I might do that. So don't rule it out. Giddy would probably not even be like, is there a better word than elated? Like what's higher than elated?
Euphoric.
Euphoric. There we go. Knew it, man. You're such a wordsmith. Yes, euphoric. I would absolutely be euphoric. So, and I know what else someone are thinking, and it probably wouldn't be at that level. We're going to stick with euphoric. Okay. So,
yes,
some of you, but no, not that much, but like euphoric sounds about right. Yes. So, well, it also sounds about right too, because this is a Monday, and, during the season and the off season, we do this thing for you guys and also for us, because we want to know where you guys are watching and listening to the podcast from. It's something that you love and we love too. It's called
Roll Call. That's right. We enjoy our fans so much. We can't thank each and every one of you enough for your support of Pewter Report and pewterreport.com. And it's great running into fans, either if we're out in the wild or if we're at training camp and we're saying hi to fans. And we try to interact with everybody as much as we can. And one way we can do that is with Roll Call, which we do most Mondays around 4:20. One of us will go on a rant or a conversation about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in the meantime, if you want to put in the chat where you're watching from, like Bill Daly watching from Columbia, Tennessee, we'll put each one up on the screen, give a couple personal shout outs as well, because we have fans from all over. And it's so awesome to see, and we appreciate it so much. So, Scott, whenever you're ready, please take it away and start putting in the chat, everybody, where you're watching from. We'll put it up on the screen.
I will do that. So I did a Pewter Pulse video the other day. Was it Sunday? Yeah, yesterday, I guess. All the days run together, March Madness. And I did it on production, right? And, I've talked about a couple players in the video. And I dropped the video, and it's worth watching. And I'm not going to do the whole, 8 or 9 minutes, however long it is on this. But I think it's worth kind of getting out there we need to speak this into existence, folks, because I've done a little bit of like, what's the common denominator between a couple of these high profile draft busts, like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, and Chris Braswell. And honestly, I don't think Logan Hall was a bust so much, because he turned into be a starting caliber player. He signed a nice deal with the Houston Texans. But in terms of pass rush, right, he just never was that defensive tackle that the Bucs were hoping for. And I like production. And I'm a big believer in production, because if you can do it at the college level, at least it's an indication that you can do it at the pro level. You might not be able to do it, but you look at someone like Akeem Messidor, 35.5 sacks, right? And he's not doing this at Toledo or like the MAC conference, right? He's doing this against some big league teams, Ohio State, right? And then, within his conference, the ACC. I think he had a sack or two in Indiana, against Indiana in the national championship. This is a player that 35.5 sacks can get the job done. That catches my attention. When you perform and you put up some serious statistics against top level competition, to me, that matters more than players that have this athletic upside. Like one player that if you're watching the draft day show and Pewter Report, once again, it's going to be doing our live 3-day draft show, 19-20 hours of coverage live from One Buccaneer Place. And they draft Keldrick Falk in the first round. I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind. Okay. This guy had 2 sacks last year. I think he had 7 the year before. He's got 10 sacks in 3 seasons at Auburn. Okay. And I don't care that he's 20 years old and 6'6", 275. Okay. Because this team has been way too enamored with athletes. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, Chris Braswell. If you're going to draft a guy to get to the quarterback, get to the effing quarterback. Show me you can do it. Okay? So I do look at production. It doesn't mean that if you haven't produced in college, you can't at the next level, but that is a projection. I'm looking for guys that can produce consistently in college, not the one-year wonders, because that's what Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, and Chris Braswell were. They all had that one blow-up year, and even Yaya Diaby, 9 sacks. And that's why he's kind of topped out at 7.5 sacks, because he hasn't proven he can be that double-digit sack guy. Okay, so if you're interested in Keldrick Falk, I'm not interested in that whatsoever. I don't want a guy that had 2 sacks last year. I don't care about upside and potential. Ask the Bengals about Shamar Stewart and upside and potential, because he had 2 sacks at Texas A&M and didn't do shit in Cincinnati last year. Okay. And this is a big reason why I do love me some Jacob Rodriguez. All right. 127 tackles in 2024, 128 last year. 10.5 tackles for loss in 2024, 11 tackles for loss last year. See where I'm going with this? Consistent production. I want to know what I'm getting. This guy's a playmaker. 10 forced fumbles, right? I like CJ Allen. I think he would be a good fit in Tampa. I don't love CJ Allen. If they drafted him in the first round, I'm not going to poo-poo the pick. I'm okay with it. I like CJ. I love Jacob. I love the upside. I love the consistency, the production. He's just way more productive than CJ Allen was in terms of splash plays. And Matt, when you're looking at, at what separates teams from winning and losing on Sundays, it's turnover margin, right? It's not, we're going to run the ball 30 times against Carolina. Wrong. No, it's not that. It's turnover margin. That typically determines the winners and losers on Sundays. I want guys that get the ball back. Guys like Jacob Rodriguez, right? There he is punching the ball out. That's 1 of 10 forced fumbles. Why do we like Lavonte David so much? Why is he a Bucs legend? He forced more fumbles than any other player in red and pewter. Okay? That's part of what made him special. Take the ball away, give it back to the offense. That's why I like these guys. Zion Young. Now, listen, they might draft Zion Young. I don't know, right? But he's a player that at Missouri last year had a little bit of the blow-up year. 6.5 sacks. Where was this the previous year? He had 2.5 sacks. Where was this at Michigan State? He had 1.5 sack and then 1 sack as a freshman. That's 11.5 sacks in 4 years. And you think this guy is going to get to the quarterback a whole bunch? Really? I'm just saying. Maybe Zion Young surprises me. Maybe he, is all that. I don't care about 40-yard dash times. I don't care about RAS scores anymore. I really don't. You have to be athletic enough to be an NFL player, okay? I want instincts, toughness, physicality, production. You know why Kalijah Kancey led this team in sacks 2 years ago with 7.5? I don't know, because he had 7 sacks as a junior at Pittsburgh and then had 7.5 sacks as a senior at Pittsburgh. So is it any surprise that he is capable of getting 7.5 sacks in the NFL? No, because he did that in back-to-back seasons. Now, again, it doesn't apply across the board. It's not 100% surefire guarantee. I've just seen enough of no production. Boom, 1 year, draft that guy. He's a good athlete. Sorry, it's time to hit the reset button. And you know what, Matt? We've talked about it. That's what gives me a little bit of hope and optimism about David Walker. 39 sacks in 4 years. The lowest amount of sack total he had in any year was 8. He had 2 years of double-digit sacks. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl. We saw him in practice 2 years ago, and he looked like he belonged. He had a sack in the Senior Bowl game, right? The dude's 6 foot, 265, 263. He can. You see what Tez Johnson does with like the little cartwheel and the flips and all that. Okay, that's fun to do at 5'10", 155. David Walker can do that at 260 pounds. Dude is a bit of a freak of an athlete. So, again, give me the productive players. I'm not necessarily endorsing Messidor. He's got some foot issues that, probably have to be checked out. I just like the production. Just give me guys. If I'm drafting a pass rusher, give me a guy that has shown me on film over and over again and get to the quarterback.
Very well said, Scott. And Jason Light was, ready to jump through the roof when talking about David Walker
Yeah.
last week, calling him, he's a freakish athlete and
Yeah.
he's beyond ahead of schedule, which is really good to see. But I think what's really important to kind of decipher, it's easy to decipher like on-field production versus potential because the production is there in the stats, and sometimes the box score, you can't just watch this box score. You got to watch the tape, and not all stats are the same.
Correct.
But especially like with the position that the Bucs are looking at this year, edge rusher and inside linebacker, you either got a sack or you didn't. Like it's kind of hard to really hide those type of things.
Yeah.
And I think for the players with the quote unquote potential or, higher level ceiling and stuff like that, those to me feel like players that maybe you take a risk on in the 4th round or the 3rd round or a little bit later on, because you are just kind of throwing darts at the ball at that point. Why not go with somebody like when you're making your pick in the 1st round, you want to be damn sure about this player. So I'd rather be focused on a player that has a proven track record of being able to get the job done. What they do in the big games, because that was a big thing, different position, but like Jalen McMillan, it was like, okay, maybe he's a little bit in the shuffle with some of the other guys at Washington, Rome Odunze, but he was the one scoring touchdowns in the college football playoff games and the national championships. So different position, but like, what are these players doing in big moments? How do they perform in the biggest games of the season? Is there a track record of multiple sacks or double-digit sacks in a season, whatever the case may be?
Right.
How often are you taking the football away?
Yeah.
These are things you have to be sure about versus a guy who maybe it's like, hey, well, once he grows into his body, he'll be spectacular.
Yeah.
The Bucs don't have that time right now.
Right.
They do not have that time. They need someone to hit the ground running right away. So, yeah, I agree. I think right now it's all about the production. Yeah. Screw the potential because the potential has not worked out. We've seen it with a couple of players, JTS you mentioned.
Yeah.
So give me someone with production, someone that's going to help this team right away as a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, I think we can agree that probably 2 of the best pass rushers present day in the NFL, right, are Myles Garrett and Will Anderson, right? Just those 2 guys. They were top 5 picks. I think Garrett was number 1 overall, I believe. Top 5 picks that just had totally lived up to the billing, right? Well, let's just take a quick look. So Myles Garrett, 3 years at Texas A&M, right? He left after his junior season. 11.5 sacks as a freshman, 12.5 as a sophomore, 8.5 in his junior season. Okay. That's 32.5 sacks in 3 years, including 2 years of back-to-back double-digit sacks. You mentioned taking the ball away. He had 5 forced fumbles as a sophomore and 2 as a junior. So that's 7 forced fumbles and 32.5 sacks. He averaged double-digit sacks in his college career. Will Anderson, right? Again, 3-year starter at Alabama. As a freshman, 7 sacks. As a sophomore, 17.5 sacks. As a junior, 10 sacks, right? Only forced 1 fumble, but hey, he gets the quarterback. Again, like Myles Garrett, 34.5 sacks in 3 seasons, right? So, this draft doesn't really have that guy in it per se, but I'm just saying, it's no surprise given the level of productivity that these players had, the proven ability to get to the quarterback. And it's not including pressures either, right? And just like sacks and pressures, they're all created differently, right? Like you can have a pressure on a touchdown pass, right? And that's why I don't put as much stock in pressures because not all pressures are the same. If it's a pressure that forces an interception or a pick six, that's a fantastic pressure.
For sure,
if it's getting your hands up and pressuring a quarterback who still threw a touchdown pass, that pressure means less. Just like if you get a sack, a 7-yard sack on first down, they end up converting on third down and driving on that drive and getting a touchdown. That sack is not as, say, impactful as getting a sack on third down that forces a punt and steals the possession. So it's all, a little bit of gray area in there, but I just want production. And I don't want these athletes that are one-hit wonders, one-year wonders anymore. Go for the proven guys.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And they desperately need that at inside linebacker and at edge rusher specifically. Retro Vega Gaming had a good comment as well, saying college stats: Max Crosby 20 sacks, Hendrickson 29 and a half, Miles Garrett 32 and a half. So elite rushers have elite showings
Yeah.
at all levels, and that's why you can't take a risk at edge rusher with the Bucs picking at 15 if they
Right.
stay at 15, because there is enough talent out there
Mm-hmm.
where, if you want to find someone else later, you absolutely can, but
Yeah.
don't go for the, I don't know. I always feel like maybe not 9 times out of 10, but a majority of the time, the players who have potential and could build into something, they don't typically work out the way that you want it to. It's
Right.
just the one anomaly. Everyone goes, see,
Yeah.
look at that guy. Look at that guy. We're going to get that with him.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case, but everybody falls in love with the story because it's a great story, but it never works out.
Yeah. And really, that player that you're talking about is Danielle Hunter, right, from LSU. This is a player that had 4.5 sacks in college. 4.5. He had 3 sacks as a sophomore and then 1.5 sack as a junior before leaving to go to the pros. He's the exception to the rule. He is not the rule. He is the outlier. He's become, a double-digit sack guy on a perpetual basis, a Pro Bowler, all that stuff. But he's that one-off. He is not the regular. So speaking of regular, you're here during the 4 o'clock hour on Monday, and our regular scheduled program is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're giving you a podcast year round, not just in the football season, but in the off season. Tomorrow's show should be a good one. Surprise draft picks for the Bucs. These are some players we were a little surprised last year, right? They took a wide receiver, but even more importantly, they took Emeka Egbuka. It was kind of off our radar, so shame on us. But these are some players, and that's right. There's Vega Ione, the guard from Penn State. What in the world is would Tampa Bay draft a guard in the first round with all these defensive needs? Would they still draft Kenyon Sadiq? We're going to talk about it tomorrow. That's tomorrow's show at 4 o'clock. On Wednesday, who picks up the slack in the Bucs passing game with Mike Evans no longer an option for Baker Mayfield to throw to? Where are those targets going to go? Who's going to get the touchdowns? Mike was always the touchdown leader in Tampa Bay. Who's going to get that role this year? We're going to talk about that on Wednesday's show. Thursday's show is going to be a preview of the NFL annual meeting. The Bucs info we want to learn in Arizona. Yours truly, Scott Reynolds, is heading out to Arizona next week to talk to Todd Bowles, Jason Light, and Joel Glazer. And if you have questions that you want answers to, I'm going to take those from you on Thursday's show. So you can ask them during the show, but what I recommend, so I don't get lost in the shuffle here, is write them in the comments for that show on Thursday. So you'll have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because we're not going to have a podcast, until the next Monday's show. But leave your questions that you want me to ask Todd Bowles in the comments, and I'll sift through and I'll find some that I like. Then on Sunday, Josh Capo and Adam Slavon and some guy named Trevor Sikkema. That name sounds familiar, Matt. Do you know what Trevor Sikkema is?
Yeah.
He used to have a man bun,
I've always
didn't he?
wanted to meet him. Yeah, I always want to meet him.
Yeah, of course. That's Peter Report alum Trevor Sikkema, now with Pro Football Focus. He is going to be taking part in a special Sunday live Bucs mock draft with Josh and Adam. And that's going to be Sunday at 5 p.m. They typically do it around noon. This will be a 5 p.m. show on Sunday here on Pewter Report TV. So make sure that you get dialed into that. And then we'll have a Pewter Insider on Friday, Matt and I will, but topic to be determined. We'll let the week kind of sort that out. But then on Monday, a week from today, we will have the presser reaction to Bucs coach Todd Bowles. I will be joining Matt via satellite from Arizona. That's what they used to do back in the day, live via satellite. Yes, I'll be in Phoenix, and then Matt will be right there at his studio, and we're going to be talking about Todd Bowles' press conference that he will be having at the NFC breakfast at 8 o'clock. Now, it's going to be 8 o'clock Pacific time, but it'll really be like 11 o'clock. So we're going to have some tweets on X where you can follow what Bowles is saying. We'll have some video clips, but we're going to be having the reaction show next Monday at 4 o'clock. Then Then we've got Joel Glazer will be having his press conference on Tuesday. And again, I'll be live from Phoenix via satellite, and I'll be joining Matt for the podcast. And we're going to have our annual meeting with Joel Glazer. He only speaks once per year, and he does it at the NFL annual meeting, and it's in Arizona this year. So I will be asking Joel questions about Todd Bowles and his thoughts on the Buccaneers and expectations for the season, and maybe a new stadium and everything else under the sun out there in Phoenix. So a lot of fantastic shows coming your way. All I ask is that you do one thing, actually two things. We're like 4 subscribers away from hitting 22,800. We're so close to 23,000. So please go to Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, hit subscribe. It's free. If you'd like to become a Pewter Report TV channel member with the paid membership, we would love to have you. And we have 4 different membership levels. Our travel budget is comprised from your generous gifts each month. So when we go to places like the Senior Bowl, the Combine, the NFL annual meeting, it's funded by your generosity. And think of it as sending us on location to get you the information that you want, need, and crave about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and feeding your own fandom. So it's a great investment in your own Buccaneer enjoyment. Find the membership level that serves your budget the best, along with the perks. The Pewter Premier and Pewter Platinum members, they do get access to that bonus Pewter Insider podcast on Friday. So if you love the show, do not miss the Pewter Insider shows that we do on Fridays. So maybe start your membership with a Pewter Premier membership. And we greatly appreciate all the support from our Pewter people.
Yes, we do. Appreciate everyone's support. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield, shall we? He is the topic of of today's show, but obviously a lot of other news went on with Tampa Bay this season. And as we know, quarterback position is the most important position in all of football. Yeah. And it very much feels for the Bucs this upcoming season, they need to fix a lot on the defensive side. They surely have. The majority of their moves have been made on the defensive side.
Yeah.
But to me, the biggest deciding factor of if Tampa Bay will be successful, make the postseason, find a way to get back to double-digit wins, is going to be that relationship between Baker Mayfield and Zach Robinson.
Yeah.
How well does it mesh? How much can they get back to being the team that was one of the best in the league in scoring points, averaging 30 points per game, being the catalyst, the focal point of why Tampa Bay has won games and why they were winning games?
Yeah.
Because even if we've seen before 2 seasons ago, if the Bucs defense continues to struggle, they can still find a way to win on the offensive side. Now, they will be pulling most of the weight and most of the slack, but it is what it is. Baker Mayfield cannot have the season that he had last year and find a way to get the Bucs successful. It's just, I'm not saying he has to replicate what he did in 2024, but his play style kind of leads to him eventually going to be banged up at some point. The mistakes that he makes, it's not all of the time. It's certainly not what it was a couple of years ago, his first year in Tampa Bay. But there's still too many times where a mistake will flare up in some pretty bad moments. And it's just kind of like, what were you thinking in that type of situation? Baker Mayfield needs to play his best football in 2026 if the Bucs are going to win, make the postseason, and answer a lot of questions about him as well. You know, he's playing on the last year of his deal. What does his future look like in Tampa Bay? So a lot of interesting stuff with Baker Mayfield going into the season.
Yeah, and I think one of the other areas that I'm really a little concerned about, right, is we saw the touchdowns drop, right, from 41 in 2024 under Liam Cohen to, was it 27 last year? I used to have it memorized. I think it's 27. But it was a substantial drop off, right, in terms of the amount of touchdowns. And when you look at that, who was responsible for a lot of those touchdowns, right? It's Mike Evans. He was that guy that Baker could sit there, just throw that little 1 to 5 yard fade to, and he's 6'5", and he goes up and grabs the ball like he's grabbing a rebound playing hoops. And he was so successful at doing that. I would love to have some metric out of all of the 100+ touchdowns that he has in his Bucs career. How many of those were like inside the 5 yard line, and those little throw it up and let Mike go get it touchdowns. A lot of them. If you told me that it was 30 to 40% of them, I wouldn't, doubt your number whatsoever. To me, that's just what you get for having a 6'5" receiver that has tremendous hands, hand-eye coordination, and leaping ability. And he just created so many touchdowns down there in the lower red zone. And we also saw, and it was that Saints game that last year where they tried that a little curiously, one play with Sterling Shepard, who's 5'10".
Yeah.
Remember? And they were trying against Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Baker almost threw an interception on one. And Kool-Aid McKinstry actually broke up both of these passes on back-to-back plays. They tried it with Sterling Shepard. It was almost picked off. Then they tried it with Emeka Egbuka, 6'1", bigger guy, and it was still swatted away. So right now you've got all these 6'1" wide receivers in Jalen McMillan, in Chris Godwin, in Emeka Egbuka, right? We don't think Sterling Shepard's going to be back, but then you've got a 5'10" guy in Tez Johnson who can do a backflip, but I don't think has the vertical to necessarily go up and moss a guy like Mike Evans could. So Matt, that's really one of the things that kind of concerns me a little bit about Baker's ability to put the ball in the end zone is, out of those 41 touchdowns, how many of those were like those little, I don't say cheapies, but those little gimme touchdowns that Mike made look so easy? Was it 5? Was it 7 that year? Whatever the number was, they're going to miss that this year unless they go out and get another bigger bodied receiver to replace Mike.
Yeah, that's super fair. And I think another part that will kind of branch off from that, if things don't go well, is Baker tries to save the day a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works. Like the Houston game, I think, is a prime example of how it worked. And that was more of his scrambling than necessarily his throwing. I think the win over the Jets, you kind of saw that as well, not from a scrambling standpoint. But Baker tries to save the day. And for every great moment that there is, you also have times where he goes a little too all or nothing when it doesn't necessarily need to be the case there. And that's when a turnover happens or another mistake gets compounded and you lose the ball and you either have to settle for 3 or it's turnover and you're giving the ball to the other team. So that worries me a little bit as well, where like if you're in the red zone, let's remember the running game struggled a lot last year too.
That's right.
And that could super, super help Baker Mayfield. I mean, it helps every quarterback, but Baker specifically getting back to that play action, which I don't think was utilized enough last season. I just worry that, you get into the red zone, Baker doesn't have his guy because Mike's not there. Is he just going to roll out, chuck it? Oh, hopefully someone catches it. Because, I don't know. Right. That's happened from time to time with Baker. I'm not saying he needs to be neutered by any means, but, he's getting older in age.
Yeah.
He can't just hang on for dear life every single time, take a big shot, but you get the pass off. Because I think Baker's health is eliminating the turnovers, but staying healthy, to me, goes hand in hand. Because his just availability will be most important. And that also plays in a role into playing smart and not playing to save the day.
Yeah. I've made no secret about the fact that I'm not thrilled about K-Dot getting $10 million a year, but I will say he has proven to have a little bit, and I'm going to use your term here because I like it, the clutch DNA, right? He's come up with some of those big touchdowns that either have won games or have kept the Buccaneers in games, late in games. And maybe get back to that. We saw him finally get into the end zone when they needed him the most in that narrow win against Carolina in the season finale. But you go back throughout his career, whether it was the Falcons game, going back to his rookie season with Brady, he had, game-winning touchdowns, I want to say, against the Rams. I remember the Rams that season. The Texans touchdown that should have won the game for the Buccaneers, if not for C.J. Stroud victimizing Carlton Davis for a third touchdown in that game. But maybe the Buccaneers get their money's worth out of K-Dot again. Maybe he becomes more of a red zone weapon again that he wasn't last year, because Josh Guzar was more of a wide receiver focused play caller, whereas Zach Robinson, maybe by default, because he didn't have Drake London down the stretch, had to lean on Kyle Pitts, but we know what Kyle Pitts did to the Buccaneers, 3 touchdowns on Thursday Night Football. Zach Robinson was obviously calling those plays. So maybe that is someone who can help Baker get some more of those touchdowns and have drives and an extra point rather than a field goal.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's going to take a full effort to kind of pick up the slack all over the place. I don't want to give away too much because we do have a podcast topic about that coming up as well. What I do want to do as well is give a huge thank you to all of our Pewter Platinum members. Thank you, everyone, for your support of PewterReport.com. We will have a Pewter Insider coming up on Friday, so we'll let those names scroll across the bottom as well. And also, we'll give a shout out to some of those that participated in Roll Call today, starting with M.A. Bush, who says, "What up, Pewter people? Hello from Atlanta. The Falcons have Falcon hard this offseason, and I love it. LOL." Yeah. Going international on this next one, Tiago Pacheco, watching from Argentina. Very cool to see. David Melnick, Alligator Point, Florida. Crazy Bucs fan from Hudson, Florida.
There we go.
And then a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, Huge Purple, Target, LA, Verne, California. Yeah. Not exactly sure where that's from, but very cool. So yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, for your support and for joining us on Roll Call today.
We have some great support, too, from the folks over at Amuni Financial. I'm going to drop today's Bucs mailbag in the chat for you all to consume if you haven't already. But as always, Amuni Financial is the presenting sponsor of Bucs Mailbag. They want to help you with your retirement.
Will your savings last through retirement? Most people plan for 10 years, but retirement can last 30. Healthcare, taxes, market swings, it all adds up. Take our quiz. Check your retirement readiness today. Amuni Financial.
A lot of folks retiring down to Florida, and why not? It's absolutely gorgeous outside. The weather's been fantastic lately here. And if you want to move to Florida, or maybe you're already in Florida and you're looking to retire sooner rather than later, well, your savings last through retirement. Take this 2-minute quiz. It's free. There's no obligation to become an Amuni Financial client, but they'd love to have you. And as someone who has a lot of their financial investments through Amuni, like I do, I can vouch for them as a company. Great to work with. I've thoroughly enjoyed the investments and the portfolios they put together for me and the returns I've gotten. So I'm well on my way to retirement. But if you are in that process yourself, scan the QR code or visit them on the web at amuni.com/retirement and take that quiz. It will help determine how much money you need. Matt, we talked about St. John's beating the Kansas Jayhawks at the buzzer. And it's getting down to the buzzer for happy hour here. No, it's not. Happy hour is lasting till close. I'm just kidding. But it's 4:53 right now, Eastern time. And it started at 3 o'clock today. It's going to go on until close. And if you can't make it to happy hour today at Walk-Ons, we'll go tomorrow. It's all day from open to close, plus $5 Tito's. You can eat like a winner, drink like a champ. 3 Tampa Bay-area locations to serve you. You can check out their happy hour menu. It's fantastic, whether it's the $3.99 domestic pints, the $5.49 domestic drafts, or the $8 boneless wings and cheeseburger sliders that I can make a meal from. There's something on that happy hour menu that appeals to everybody. And you can find those 3 locations, Wesley Chapel, Midtown Tampa, and Lakeland, and go to them and watch sports, whether it is all of the college basketball games that are going on, whether it is the Lightning and the NHL action. You can drop the puck, raise the energy at Walk-Ons. Not a bad seat in the house, and a fantastic happy hour menu.
Shout out Walk-Ons. Great spot to watch all sports, really any sport. So love going there. Love the food and drinks that they have. Also love these super chats from everybody. Thank you so much. You've been patiently waiting, so let's get to it. Mark Fisher, thanks for the $4.99, says, can't listen live. Crosby for a first and a 2027 second still makes sense. Yes. Need a 2027 first round pick in case we need a new quarterback, but 2 more defensive starters and we look good.
Yeah, I'm curious if a team is going to come back around right before the draft with Max Crosby. I just don't know, right? It seems like the Raiders have kind of communicated to Max Crosby that they're going to keep him. You know,
Yeah.
they've already like tried to trade him, and they're like, okay, we want you back, and then it would seem a little funny now if they just said, all right, we're going to trade you
Right.
after all. So,
like, it's one of those things where technically, legally, they can trade him again, but how the Ravens are getting a lot of criticism for just kind of operating in bad business. I don't know if you necessarily want to do that as well to Max Crosby. Like, again, if you're playing Madden, it's like, we're trading you again, but it's a little bit cruel to do that in that sense of it.
Exactly.
But moving on, T-Level, thank you for this $20 super chat. We appreciate it. Says, Baker's ceiling so far is the number 5 overall quarterback. Yes, a check down master, but also a deep ball specialist. Furthest air yards in the throw. Success depends entirely on the offensive line health. Trade, and we end up in quarterback / head coach hell with Atlanta and New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Baker I like best is the one I saw in 2024, where he gets rid of the ball on time, out of his hand, in rhythm, and let the playmakers make the plays. When we saw him do more deep shots last year at Josh Grizzard's insistence, we saw that completion percentage go down. We also saw Baker hang in the pocket a little bit more and maybe take some more shots. We also saw him, as a result, Matt, I think, hang in the pocket a little too long when those routes didn't get open. Then he was forced to scramble, and sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, sometimes he took a shot. So I just like Baker in the pocket, getting rid of the ball on time, the high completion percentage, and let these guys cook.
And I don't mean this as demeaning to Baker Mayfield, but I think part, like the rhythm and timing, everything you just talked about, a big factor in that 2024 season is that Baker didn't have to think as much. And again, I would say this about any quarterback in that offense last season or 2 seasons ago. It just happened to be Baker Mayfield. But Baker, I'd say probably 8 out of 10 times, knew where he was going with the football immediately as he lined up and understood what the defense was going to do. He didn't, you just get in. I think a good example, if you were going to watch last season, and it's a little bit different, but the game against Seattle, where they had Seattle's number defensively, which is crazy because you watch the Super Bowl and see what happened. But they knew what they were going to do. Guys were getting open. Baker didn't have to think, and that's why he hit that deep shot to Emeka Puka. It's just you get in this stream of unconsciousness of you just know exactly where everything's going to go. Everything's on point. It's like, again, bring back to basketball. You hit three-pointers in a row, and it's like, all right, we're going to let him go again because he's unstoppable right now. There was so much more of that with Baker 2 seasons ago than there was last season. So, just that rhythm and timing is going to be super important for him. Kings are awful. Thank you for this $5 super chat. Says, this new linebacker is a depth piece, talking about Christian Roseboom. Is a depth piece terrible last year. He had an interception against the Bucs. Baker literally handed him the ball. Dollar light strikes again. But as we pointed out, Kings are awful. And in fairness, you sent this earlier in the show. Yeah. He's not the answer to who's going to be the starting inside linebacker. That starter is coming in the draft. Yeah. So I think from depth, it's totally fine. You're not going to have 3 backup inside linebackers that are all starters on, I don't know, 25 other teams in the league. It's just, it's not plausible.
Yeah, this guy is the replacement for Deion Jones. This guy's the replacement for Anthony Walker Jr., right? Yes. You're building your linebacker room from the floor up, and that's okay because you already have Alex Anzalone, who is he's closer to the top than he is the bottom of that linebacker room. But you're going to draft another linebacker here in this year's draft class that I think is going to have a much brighter star and a bigger upside.
Kings are awful. Thank you for this $2 super chat. Says, better than Servassier Dennis is not a good tagline, SR.
Yeah, but it's the truth. I mean, I think he's on par with Servassier Dennis, probably a little bit better due to his experience in production. So, again, incremental improvements, right? We want to see this team make a big step forward, but a lot of times, and this is kind of coach speak, and I'm not saying Todd Bowles coach speak, but it's like, how do you get better? Like 1% a day. If you do that for 30 days, that's like 30% better. Sorry, that's just kind of how you have to do it. Sometimes you need to take what's available and build your floor, and then draft some players that will be higher picks closer to the ceiling.
Yeah, if I'm mounting a TV on my wall, I'm not just sticking the TV on the wall. You got to put everything else up front and then put the TV on top of that. So, yeah, think of it that way. And again, I would implore every Bucs fan, look at the inside linebacker room last year and see what they have right now. And ask yourself if you think that group in 2025 is better. And I know it's a little bit tough right now because they haven't played a game yet in 2026. But is that 2025 group right now better than the 2026 group? I don't necessarily think so, but always open to discussion. The Delaney, thank you for the $1.99 super chat, says realistic wide receiver prospects for the Bucs.
We're going to be talking about some early round wide receivers tomorrow. I don't want to give that away on the show. Those sleeper picks for the Bucs. But I mean, I kind of circle back around to like Ted Hurst from Georgia State. He's the big bodied X receiver that I think would fit in exceptionally well. He's got vertical speed, a 4.4 guy, 6'3", he can jump out of the gym. Someone like that kind of comes to mind. Dejon Stribling, 6'2", bigger bodied X receiver. Those are a couple of players that I think could be had in the draft. Not sure if they're going to go out and get a veteran wide receiver, Matt, and drop a lot of money into that room. You already have a $22 million receiver. You already have a first, a guy in Emeka Buku who's on a first round rookie contract. Jalen McMillan, right? So you got multiple millionaires in that receiver room already, and then with Chris being at $22 million. So I don't see them dropping a whole bunch of money in there. I would maybe keep an eye on Juwan Jennings. He's a player from the 49ers that I think has some appeal if he's still available. I liked him coming out of Tennessee. He's not the fastest guy, but he's big, strong, physical X receiver. So that's a name to keep in mind.
Yeah, my thoughts with bringing a veteran in that isn't like, hey, a Sterling Shepard re-signing or something like that is, what is their immediate spot on the depth chart?
Yeah.
Like, are they taking snaps away from Jalen McMillan?
Right.
Away from Tez Johnson? Like, where is that fit overall? So I kind of would rather them draft someone, and if they are taking snaps away from some of these other receivers, it's because they earned it and they've kind of really surprised and built their way up.
Yeah.
The Delaney, thank you for the $4.99 super chat, says thoughts on Dave Canales giving up play calling for the Panthers.
Yeah, Brad Idzik.
Brad Idzik.
Yes, is going to be
friend of the program.
Over. That's right. Yes, friend of the program. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously, listen, those two guys are like brothers, right? That's like big brother,
they're
little
two
brother.
peas in a pod.
They are. So this is going to go one of two ways. Either he's going to give Brad the opportunity to call plays because he's really, truly wanting to help him out. And I think, too, it is a lot. It's a lot to call plays and be a head coach. Some coaches can do it exceptionally well. Some maybe not so well. Dave Canales always reserves the right to take the play calling back, right? If Brad is just not getting the hang of it, if it doesn't look the way Canales wants it to look, if they're not winning games, not scoring points, he's always the default, right? So I think kind of you go in, if you're Dave Canales, knowing, hey, I'm the safety net here, but let's give Brad an opportunity and maybe we have better results. I like it in the fact that he's not satisfied with the point production. And he's not satisfied with an 8-9 record, and he's looking to try to do things to improve the team. And he feels like this is one of the ways in Carolina he can improve the team. We'll see if it works. Contrast that to, I don't know, the defense in Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles doesn't want to give up play calling. Maybe he should. He's not going to. So
that's an interesting comparison. Like, what if? Because right now, Carolina, to my knowledge, like a lot of their moves were on the defensive side, like Devin Lloyd and stuff like that in free agency. So they pretty much have a similar offense coming back. And certainly the draft, they can address other things. But if Canales gives the reins over to Idzik, which he just did, and Carolina figures something out offensively, I mean, obviously having McMillan as your wide receiver is pretty good. But, Bryce Young has the best year of his career and stuff like that. And you juxtapose that with Tampa Bay, and Todd Bowles is struggling, and he refuses to give play calling duties to someone else. I know it's apples and oranges, but that's a really bad look. Where it's like, see what Dave Canales did, and it worked fine. Like, why can't you do that? I think it totally makes sense for Dave Canales. Like, nobody's going to trust Brad Idzik more than Dave Canales.
That's right. Yeah.
Canales is going to trust literally anybody else in the league to call plays offensively. They've been together for a very long time. And I think, it is. And Canales spoke about it too, the challenges of, I got to challenge this play, but I was just talking to the quarterback about like what was going on here. That's not easy to do. So I'm intrigued by it. I think it could work. I mean, they've been together for so long.
I agree.
Moving on, though. Kings are awful. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, based on the 5 times I've been called by a Bucs rep asking if I want to buy season tickets and offering me a 30% discount, they must not be selling well.
No, if they're discounting tickets, then no, they're probably not selling well. So, not surprising. That's not if that's the case. That's not surprising. I mean, coming off an 8-9 record with an unpopular coach. I mean, seriously, an unpopular coach. We did a flash poll after the season. Fans were very unhappy. Over 2,000 votes, which is like more than you'll find like in national polls, right?
Yeah.
Very, very adamantly opposed Todd Bowles. So, Bucs fans don't like the product right now, right? And they don't like who's in charge of the product. So,
and you compound that with Mike leaving, so there's even that much more frustration. Lavonte looks like he's probably not coming back either. So, I mean, there's a lot of anger. So, I get it from Bucs fans. K Leard 2, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, no more edge rushers with potential. Bucs have shown that they can't develop a competent edge rusher.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's no such thing as a surefire pick in the draft, just like there's no such thing as a surefire free agent signing. But I just like the idea of the guy that's kind of been there and done that, right? Because if a guy hasn't gotten to the quarterback a lot in college, why are you projecting that he's going to do that against better competition at the next level? Right. I mean, it's hard enough to be a double-digit sacker in college and come to the NFL and trying to replicate that success. Like, that's hard. And that doesn't always happen. But if you don't get to the quarterback in college very often, then what makes you think that that's going to happen in the NFL? Right. And like I understand, for example, and I remember, I think it was John Spytek who was also very adamant about the Bucs drafting Chris Braswell. He was one of the champions for Braswell in the Bucs war room. And he was talking about Braswell, about how, he stayed at Alabama, right? And they had Dallas Turner and they had Will Anderson, the guys in front of him, right? So he had to kind of bide his time. So what does that tell you? It tells you he's not better than either one of those players. Because if he was, he would have beaten out one of them for the starting job. So right away, you're not getting a player that's good enough. In other words, he had to wait his turn, for that. And you could use the same logic and say, well, was Cassius Howell, was he not as good as Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart? Maybe he's not, maybe just had a big year, 11.5 sacks last year against SEC competition to lead that conference. But then he also had a 9.5 sack season at Bowling Green, which shows you he's not just a one-year wonder. He's put up a couple of years worth of decent sacks numbers. So it's a lot to kind of sift through, but give me production over potential any day, right? Because to me, I just want to have a pretty good feel for that. Like, for example, like why was Emeka Egbuka the number 1 pick last year, right? At pick number 19 for the Buccaneers. Like, why were they so sold on him? Because he's the leading receiver at Ohio State University.
Yeah.
A school that has produced a ton of NFL talent at wide receiver, and he had 2 1,000-yard seasons in his 2 healthy seasons there. So he showed you on more than one occasion, more than just 1 year, he could be a 1,000-yard guy. And, if you had gotten more targets down the stretch, if you didn't have a drop here or there, you would have had 1,000 yards last year as a rookie. So that's what I want to see. I want to see guys that have consistently produced. And I think those guys, like Tyke Smith, you look at his stat sheet from West Virginia and from Georgia. He makes plays every year. Forced fumble here, sack there, interception here, tackles for loss there. Like, he fills up the stat sheet. So when he comes to the NFL and is tied for the Bucs lead in interceptions and forced fumbles as a rookie 2 years ago, it's not much of a surprise.
No, it's not. And I think there's no question that Tampa Bay needs to tweak and adjust what they've been looking for and looking at, specifically at the edge rusher position, because they've gotten some other positions correct. There's no doubt about that. But we saw it a couple of years ago. They just didn't know how to draft running back. And then they found Bucky Irving. And, that obviously worked out 2 seasons ago. Now it's that same time with edge rusher, because it's been such an important position in the game of football. Some would argue it's the second most important position behind quarterback. And they don't have a premier guy right now. They have a solid player in Yaya Diaby, but solid for the entire room is not going to be enough if they want to win games this upcoming season.
Exactly. Folks, it's Monday. We're just getting started here on the Pewter Report podcast. Tomorrow's show at 4 o'clock, right here on Pewter Report TV, also streaming live on X and Facebook at Pewter Report. Surprise draft picks for the Bucs. We're going to take a look at some people that may not be on everyone's radar, but as we've kind of seen before, we've got Emeka Egbuka was a bit of a surprise. Kalijah Cansey caught everybody off guard. So Jason Line has been known to, shock the world a little bit in the first round. So we're going to be talking about some of those picks at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, who picks up the slack in the Bucs passing game without Mike Evans? And then on Thursday show at 4, the Bucs info we want to learn in Arizona at the NFL annual meeting. And then got a special show on Sunday. Again, we'll have a Pewter Insider on Friday at 1:30. But on Sunday at 5, Josh and Adam welcome Pro Football Focus's Trevor Sikkema, a Pewter Report alum, to the show. Special time, 5 o'clock on Sunday for another live Bucs mock draft show. That's going to be fun to watch. And then on Monday, I will be joining Matt live from Arizona, where I will have concluded my interview with Todd Bowles. We'll get his reaction. We'll offer up our reaction on his presser. How about that? On Monday's show. And then Tuesday, we'll have a chance to speak to Joel Laser out there at the Biltmore in Arizona. And we'll have a reaction show to that as well, with the latest news coming out of Arizona on Mondays and Tuesday shows. So we got some great content coming up. Make sure that you're a part of it. And with the great weather, it's a fantastic time to go play some golf. And if you have not been to Heritage Isles Golf and Country Club yet, you can do so. Just get your buddies and call 813-907-7447 for tee times. It's rated as the number 3 best value course in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area by Golf Advisor. That means it's not terribly expensive, right? So you get to play golf for not a fortune and enjoy this great weather in some picturesque greens and scenery. You can check them out at heritageilesgolf.com. And you can become a country club member, or you can just sign up for a foursome or a pairing, or however you want to play golf. But do it at Heritage Isles Golf and Country Club. Make that your next golf course adventure. For tee times, again, 813-907-7447.
And in the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. So please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video as well, whether it's your thoughts on the new signing at inside linebacker, Christian Roseboom, whether it's your thoughts on quarterback Baker Mayfield, or anything else we talked about on today's show. We'd love to see all your comments. That's it for this episode. We'll try to be even better coming up tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So until then, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.